So now you're going to use a different shape, and will you just kind of take us through the process? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Quilter's Apothecary. So today, what I'm going to have Sue do is for our new sit-down quilters to kind of take us through some of her guidelines, because again, there are tons of ways to do things, but I want her to take us through her guidelines because she does what I think is some of the best sit-down quilting I've ever seen. But I want to know how you pre-based a quilt, because I do it a little different than you do, and then also how you go to a machine if you were with someone brand new and how you would talk to them about that. But let's start with getting the quilt sandwich ready itself.
All right.
So when we are getting the quilt sandwich ready, obviously we're going to be working on a smaller piece. If you want to take us down to the table, Mr. Ritchie. Okay. So we're going to be starting with a smaller piece that Sue is actually going to be doing some quilting on in a little bit here. But then also what I want to talk about, if you face forward us again, is when you are basting something like an actual twin size, queen size, king size, is it going to be exactly the same way as this?
Very similar.
Okay,
I want to point out that I learned this technique through the awesome Sharon Chamber. So
awesome.
this is
Yes.
her technique.
Okay.
And she does have a method out there for how to do larger quilts, but this works beautifully when
Wonderful.
I've got a wall size or smaller.
Right. So if it's a big piece, would you do it on a floor? Is that how you would do it?
Table.
Table. You'd
I'm
use a
too old
giant
to
table.
do
Yeah.
on
The bending
yeah,
down.
yeah.
The bending down is easy. It's the
Right.
getting up that's
So what
hard.
Sharon does is use two boards, two pieces of long lath board
Okay.
as rollers like we do on our long arm.
Oh,
She does it like
fantastic.
that on a tabletop.
Oh,
But that's the
wonderful.
only difference.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's go back down to the table. So now we're down on the quilt sandwich. Now we've got this laid out, but will you take us through how you actually start down at the bottom?
Yes, and just before I do that, all your designs that you're going to be working on for whatever you're going to do has to be pre-marked because you'll have thread in your way from now on. So what I did was the back, I tape it on all four corners and then in the middle. And when I take tape, I just pull ever so slightly on the edges. So this is nice and taut. Then just put your batting down and your top, and then I'm just going to do the same thing with the top. I'm just going to tape it down, and I love to work on my cutting board so that the needle kind of can deflect off of the board. So I know I'm not damaging anything with my needle. Hey, Jamie, you want to get that side?
Absolutely.
Again, I'm just going to do a little tug. And then middles. Jamie asked me the question earlier about how much wider do I make the back from the top? And unlike long arms that need 8 inches, 4 on each side, with domestic work, I found only, an inch or inch and a half on each side is usually plenty.
Well, you don't have the roller bars, I will assume, and
Yep.
also the side clamps to worry about, which is what we do when we are working on a long arm. Sure, that makes
So you
sense.
still get some shrinkage. That's never going to change on whatever machine you use. But again, I think about 2 inches all the way around works. So now my sandwich is like what it would be on a long arm. It has some tension on it. So oh no, our tape isn't sticking. Gonna have to watch that.
There we
So
go.
now I'm using pearl cotton. Why pearl cotton? For two good reasons. Cotton has it's fibrous, so those fibers are going to help hold the thread in place, and also it's got a twist, and the twist just locks in the stitch. So, Jamie, when I started learning how to quilt eons ago, back in the Stone Age, we were instructed you had to quilt this way or baste in this way and then diagonally. And I'm not sure what happened with the industry, but Pins, I just really dislike pinning. It's hard on your hands. It's hard to work with when you're on the machine.
Right.
And also, it's kind of dumb that we expect a 1/4 inch that the pin is holding to stabilize about 8 inches all the way
Right.
around. So this one stitch is brilliant because it gives me this and this and the diagonal all in one stitch. And this is as straightforward as this is. 3 fingers-ish in between, and you just do a giant toe catcher stitch. And it makes this diagonal. Isn't that just the
Was
coolest
there a knot
thing?
in the end of that or no?
No,
Okay, so
don't
there's
need it
no knot.
knotted.
Okay.
This is just quick stuff. And get the longest needle you can get because again, you just want to make big toe catcher stitches. I'm just doing parallel lines so it's easy on your hand, on your wrist. So let me get to the bottom here. And then you just start another row, 3 fingers over-ish. And you start right back up the top like that. And then when you run out of thread, like there, no worry. Just start with more thread. Thread your needle and start right in the same spot.
Wonderful.
And then continue. So what's cool about this stitch, so I would do this all the way around, and as you notice, I've got the horizontals. With these long toe catcher stitches, I have the verticals, or just the opposite, vertical,
Yep.
horizontals, and with these diagonals, I have it stabilized in 3 directions, and it's
Yeah.
not going to move.
Even the bias. Yeah.
Correct. So it's beautiful.
And it is okay to go through, you've pre-drawn this, but it's okay to go through the pre-drawn portions,
Absolutely,
obviously,
because
you need to.
when I go then to quilt, so let me just get in just a couple more stitches here. And this is what I love. The only bad thing, I guess, about this, I'm just going to do another line down here quick. But in real life, you'd go the full length. The only bad thing is they are toe catchers when you're moving around your foot, especially if you have the crescent shape open foot. You just have to watch it that your machine foot won't catch that and pull them out. So what's cool is, let's just say I was sewing this circle now, right?
Right.
All I'd have to do is clip and pull out a section to sew,
Wonderful.
but everything else around remains stable.
Fantastic.
So I think this is brilliant, and I hope you ditch your pins and use this because there's no going back once you learn how fantastic this is.
Oh, wonderful. You can bring us back face on, Mr. Ritchie. So that you would take through all of this, and again, kind of the same process for larger quilts. Well, that's very helpful for me. What I've always done is a large meander with about 5 or 6 stitches per inch on the long arm.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like this version as well. This really works well. I can't wait to try it myself. And to see you when we go to the sit-down machine shortly here, as
Mm-hmm.
well as some of the tutorials that are coming up.
Yes.
All right, Sue. Well, thank you, and let's head over to the machines.
Way to go. Let's do it.
All right, everybody, we are at the machine, and Sue is going to show us, as a beginner, how to actually even consider how you're going to maneuver with the machine. We're on the Sweet 16 with the Insight table. We'll be running later, I think, without stitch regulator, correct?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so right now, my question would be, what if you have a bigger quilt rather than the small sample that we're going to actually be doing with our sample work that we're going to be sewing? So something bigger like this piece right here.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Jamie. Thanks for asking it because I get that a lot, and it's all about eliminating drag. So anytime your quilt goes over the edge of a table, If you are sewing on your domestic machine and you don't have your sewing surface at the same level, so you just have the machine on the table and you're sewing that way, anytime it is falling over that edge of that even small table, you've got some drag. So
Right.
the first thing I want to coach everybody to do is move your sewing machine into a corner if you can.
Okay.
And then that eliminates all of this. I mean, it can't go off your table if it's supported by a wall and a wall.
Got it.
So kind of wall yourself in or tuck yourself into at least a corner. That really, really helps. If you can't do that, use ironing boards. They're amazing
Genius. Different
because
heights.
you can raise it up to the whatever height. And I don't know, this should be a standard thing is if you're a right-hander to have a table here too, because when you're sewing, you've got a lot of bulk
You sure
on
do.
this side of the quilt.
Yes.
So again, stabilize here, get up against the wall or something, or support this over here, and then I want you to pull. So by pulling, what I mean by you kind of gather, 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 gather. So this part can be off the table, that doesn't make a difference, but you're pull, 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 so that when you're moving, in this area, so I'm going to be moving and sewing all around here. I'm not moving the whole quilt, but I've got enough play so I can free motion quilt this with ease
That
and
makes
not have to
sense.
worry and, hike it over your shoulder. Whatever you need to do to support, but pull it so you've got all the flexibility you need to.
Absolutely. The other thing that I might add as well is if you don't have access to multiple ironing boards, like any of the hardware stores have those foldable plastic tables
A coffee
with
table.
yeah, or that with the adjustable legs,
Yes,
so
yes.
that we use
Oh,
at the booth.
the lifetime tables, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are
Yeah,
great
so
too.
those will help because then you can get it at whatever height and work it around your table. Oh,
And one other
fantastic.
hack, this is a long time ago, quilters started doing this, and I've tried it and it kind of works. If you have a ceiling that is a drop ceiling,
Right?
um, you just get clamps from the hardware store and cords, and
Oh,
you hook it
wow.
into the framework of your ceiling. So then now all the weight's off of it
Right.
as you sew.
And if I remember correctly, I've actually seen pictures, vintage pictures of quilting bees when they did it by hand, and it
Car-
was suspended by the
Carol
ceiling.
Follert,
Carol Breyer?
Breyer Follert,
Yeah.
Gen, Gentry.
Yes, I believe so.
She was the first one I ever saw do it, and I think she started the craze, and it's brilliant, just
Wonderful.
brilliant.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Well, that helps with using something bigger. Now we're actually going to go ahead and start quilting proper.
Yes,
Okay, so Sue, if I were brand new, I had just either purchased a sit-down machine or I was actually wanting to try this on my at-home machine. Will you talk to us a little bit about, for example, when you are sewing on a sit-down without rulers, what kind of foot do you like on your machine?
I love this crescent open toe foot.
Okay,
Love, love, love.
wonderful.
The
And
only
just
thing
about
is,
every
again,
brand
it
has one of those, sure.
yes, yeah, and the only thing is, when you baste like this, and this is a terrific method for basting, they're easy to catch on there if as you're going around.
So you want to make sure to snip as you go.
Yes, but when you're positioning to start, you know,
Use caution.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, um, of course, tension is pretty much the same whether you're on a stand-up or a sit-down. Um, you are not running with a stitch regulator?
actually, it's not
Okay.
the same. Um, what I have found is I will sew a line with my regular foot on, but on a Sweet 16, I would sew a straight line because I
Okay.
don't have the feed dogs on this machine. Sew a straight line, look at it, and if the tension is good, you'll know it. Then it's no longer a knob, a dial, anything to get it better. I'm talking about domestic machines, right?
Right.
Then it all is the speed at which you sew
Okay.
after that. So if you're doing really tight turns, I use this as an example. If I were drawing
Hmm?
a circle, I would go fast between noon and 7, and then
Okay.
I'd slow down because I want it to match between like 7 and noon, right?
Okay, that makes total sense.
Same thing with a sewing machine. Don't go fast and then slow because your machine is just trying to keep up with you. So, and this is in a non-regulated mode, obviously.
Got it.
So you want to go a consistent speed, and then you'll find that your tension kind of works itself out.
Okay. And at home, you're running a Handy Quilter Capri, is that correct?
That is correct, and I
Okay,
love, love, love that machine.
wonderful. Now, when you're run at home running a machine, do you run with stitch regulator or non-stitch regulator?
Generally, on my sit downs, no, because I never had one on my regular sewing machine, and I've been doing it for so many years
Okay.
that no, I do not. That having been said, it's good to get used to not using a stitch regulator because, as you know, when you're doing really tight pebble work or something, your stitch regulator is going to be fighting with you, and you'll wonder, now, why are my circles getting square?
Okay.
It's because I think the stitch regulator is just not keeping up. If you
Okay.
know where you're going, the uh, the combination of the foot speed and your speed here is kind of like driving a car.
Got it.
You know when you're going 30, you know when you're going 60. It's all the speed at your foot and the control on the wheel. So my control is how fast I'm moving the fabric with how fast my pedal is going.
Got it. I'm also seeing, and I adjusted the table for you this afternoon before we started when you were practicing on this machine to get used to it. One of the things that I noticed is that you did bring the table height up between your belly button and the bottom of your bust.
Right, right.
Right.
Now, I kind of like it. I tend to be a leaner, so I would at home, I have it even higher. The recommended is your arm should be at a 90-degree angle.
Okay.
But I think maybe it's my vision, maybe it's my poor posture. I don't know.
I
But
like mine a little taller too.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm the same way.
So
I
this
think a
is
lot of
just
them.
slightly lower for me, or
Okay.
too low.
Got it.
Also, what I did prior to filming, and you may want to do this at home, is whenever I'm on a domestic machine, I will want to have a Supreme slider under on my tabletop.
And that is the Teflon.
That's a Teflon mat.
Got it.
Never ever follow the instructions that say to trust that pink backer. It'll stick the first few times, but as it gets linty, it loses its stick, and I've seen way too many of them sewn into the back of your
Ooh,
of the
okay.
quilt. So tape it down, and then it won't shift.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now for this machine, I don't need a Supreme slider because this is a slippery surface
Yes.
already, but I augmented it with some wax.
Yep. The Renaissance polish that we use for our rails when we're actually on a long arm.
Right.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about, do you still use needle size? What's your favorite needle size for the sit down? I use the 18, which is pretty
18s,
standard. Is that,
18s.
that's okay?
Although on a domestic, when I'm changing out the needle, then I'm usually a 14 embroidery needle. And the reason why I exclusively use an embroidery needle on my domestic sewing machine is because it's extremely sharp. And think about it, high speed embroidering, you've got needle deflection going all over the
Right.
place, and it's built to handle that. And so when you're, you know, on your free motioning,
Shoving it through.
yep, then I've always had very good luck with embroidery, and I believe they come 12 and 14, I believe.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Now, there's also lots of different choices for hoops or gloves because
Or
there's people there are
absolutely.
people that love to use the gloves. I've tried the gloves. I've enjoyed them on occasion. I prefer hoops myself. Um, and they're not really hoops, but they're kind of hoops. Will you kind of talk a little bit about that and why you choose what you choose and what you prefer?
Certainly. That's another great question. It all comes down to comfort. We want to go into the nursing homes still able to sew,
Yes.
and we want to be doing this maybe for extended periods of the day without any carpal tunnel building up in our hands or arthritis or whatever. So you can quilt just like this. Just hold on to the, side by side, and you can get plenty of play there.
Okay.
But what are you doing with your hands all day long?
Right. Gripping,
Gripping. So
grasping.
any time you have to grip, it's it's going to be
Hard.
well, it's going to be,
Not ergonomically friendly.
there you go, and a little taxing. So gloves force you to have your hands down and flat.
That's why it bothers me. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's still sending some tension up your arms and into your shoulders. So Sharon Chamber, God bless her, came out with this. It's a weighted and rubberized ring. And what I absolutely love about this is I have very good control with one or two fingers and a
And
very light touch.
and I noticed, because I've used other things, I noticed when I actually played with this a little bit that actually it holds it probably better than anything I've ever had to hold
It's
before.
part of her
It's
brilliance.
incredible.
She
Yeah.
is
Yep.
amazing. Now it's a complete ring, so that's like a conundrum. How do I get it in and out from underneath my foot? That's easy. I at home on my Capri, I have a command hook right here, and I just hook it in like that,
Sure.
and then I can move around my fabric and put it back down.
Wonderful.
Another thing is, well, gee, I'm quilting big. I mean, I need a bigger hoop. Well, think about it though. On a long arm, we can go woof, right?
Right.
On a domestic, we're going
Right.
woof. It's a speed thing. So I can, if I'm doing a large swoosh, I would do part of the swoosh needle down move because you're going to have to reposition your fabric.
That makes sense. Yep.
So this size is actually,
Perfect.
again, brilliant.
Yep.
It'll work for, shorter throats, mid arms. It works great. Now, other manufacturers obviously have seen the brilliance in this and manufactured their own versions. Let's just say they all work.
Okay.
So this has got a rubber back, so that's going to grip and move things around.
Okay.
But I don't like, personal preference, I wouldn't use the handles because that's forcing me to grip.
Okay.
Same with Martelli. They've got these. They're awesome. Again, closed ring like Sharon's. They do the same thing. But again, I like, nah, I don't know. But
Yep. For your hands. And again, just like with different rulers, you have rulers without handles, you have rulers with handles, you have all of that stuff. It's nice to be able to try these things to see
exactly.
which works best for you ergonomically.
And that's why I love to go to shows.
Yes.
Shows will have these on display, and you can kind of take them for a test drive.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, so my next question, how do you get this in and out?
Well, again, when I'm sewing, I've got a hook here, and so I can move it around and then come on back. I don't have to break thread. When I'm all done sewing and say I want to go on and do something else and I need this out of there, all I have to do is just lift up the foot and it slides right out.
Okay, great. Right. So it's not, you can lift. Most of the machines will always lift this up and you'll be able to get it out of there.
Or
It's not too deep.
or this will come up when you turn the flywheel,
Turn the flywheel.
and
Got
it'll
it.
come up.
Okay. Wonderful. So now, as a new sit-down quilter, I've just thought, I think I want to try something. What is the very first thing that you would suggest for a brand new sit-down quilter to try? And would you have them do it with thread in the machine?
All good questions. You and I are very much alike in a lot of ways. Unfortunately, we are.
True.
My first answer would be draw, 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 draw. I liken it to operating a car. It's great when we know where we're going. We don't even have to think about it. And sometimes, have you driven to a place and you don't even remember getting there?
Right.
That's all muscle memory.
Yes.
So if you can draw, any hesitation shows up in your free motion quilting. So if you can get, okay, all right, now I go left and now I go right, out of the equation, then like driving a car, sit down quilting is very much like driving. You've got the accelerator pedal and you've got your wheel.
Okay.
And so, and my stitch regulator is my eyes. So I'm watching the stitch length And if it's too long for me, what I do is either move my fabric faster
Right.
or um, lighten up on my gas pedal.
Oh,
So the
smart.
first thing I would do, so stitch regulators are grand, but after a while, I don't think you need them.
Got it.
And then you're ready to fly. So the first thing I do is draw, get whatever it is into your head. But we've all been drawing our names for all of our life.
True.
So drawing your name is a good place to start because it'll show you just how fast or slow you need to go. Now see, my stitches are long there. So now I'm going to slow down on my speed a little bit. And now my stitches are normal length. See?
Oh, got it. Okay.
So it's there I'm really excited. Okay, now I'm going to slow it down. This isn't as fast as doing it on a long arm, but I think it's just as wonderful. That was kind of a
I
weird
agree.
H.
I agree that it is. I agree exactly with what you just said.
But
It's a slower process and it's a more meditative process.
exactly, in fact, I get really sleepy
Yep.
when I'm sewing
Yep.
because it's like this the speed of the machine, the noise lulls me. Boy, that's the weirdest H I've ever done. But
I think
anyway,
it looks awesome. Now,
um,
here's something else
yeah,
I want to throw in.
sure,
So, obviously, our name is in the muscle memory.
right.
And obviously, now you're used to doing this. You're used to moving paper. Most of us aren't used to moving paper,
Paper
right?
meaning fabric.
Paper meaning fabric. We're used to moving the pen rather than the paper, right?
Oh,
So, since we're moving the paper in essence, when we're moving the fabric rather than the pen, it's almost, I always tell people, it's almost like backing up without a rearview mirror. And it takes a good, even though the name is in your muscle memory, it takes a good, because people think they should get it in 5 minutes. It takes a good half hour to 45 minutes even to get comfortable with one thing.
and you're touching on something that I really want to point out. Um, Again, when you came to my house and set up my long arm, I had been free motioning on my domestic machine for 10 plus years,
Right.
more probably, but I don't want to look my age.
Right.
And when I moved that, it's like, holy heck, that's way different than what I'm used to.
Sure.
And I've often heard my students say, it's different. It's different. I don't like, one machine. I don't like domestic because it messes with me. And I felt like saying, well, just practice more. Just, stop your whining and you'll get it or something.
Right.
I broke my right elbow and many months of physical therapy. And the therapist was a quilter. So as she's jerking around my arm, I'm asking her questions, and she finally, from a medical perspective, straightened out why it's it's not muscle memory on a technical level. When we can move the needle like our pen, that is muscle memory.
Got it.
So on a domestic machine or a mid arm, it is pattern memory, is how I'll differentiate the two. So you still want to draw, you still want to get it in your head,
Right.
but if I were to look at my needle,
Right.
if I draw a circle in the air, I'm going clockwise. So I'm just going to do that, but watch what my hands do, what direction my hands go in when I draw a circle. Okay?
Got it.
Here's my circle. Clockwise circle. What direction are my hands going in?
Almost opposite.
It is exactly opposite.
Yeah.
And so this poor woman spent so many hours with me, but I don't think if she's listening, and I hope not, she'll never be a great quilter. And here's the reason why. She watches her needle. So when you know where you're going, like I've drawn this circle, it's clockwise. I know what to do. I know what to do. I go left and I go right, da da da. then never ever watch the needle like you're driving a car. You're not looking at your hood ornament, you're looking down the road where I want to
Where you're
go.
headed. Oh my
Right.
goodness.
So if you're looking at what the needle is creating and you say, I know I want to go to the left because that's, or to the right because that's how I memorized it by drawing,
Got it.
you're 3/4 of the way there to success on a domestic machine.
I have never heard it put like that, and that makes complete sense.
I had to break my elbow to find that out.
Wow. That's awesome. So writing your name, practicing circles, practicing probably pebbles
And the
before you would move into feathers and leaves and silliness like that. Yeah.
and let it pebbles. If you draw pebbles and you're like let's see, and you're kind of you're over, you're not quite on the line, not quite on the line, but it's like I'm just going to keep doing it, and maybe the gods will
Right.
come to my rescue and help me out.
Right.
Stop,
Right.
because you're just like long arming. If you grind it till you find it,
Right.
a lot of times now that's in your head,
Right.
and
And it's the wrong way.
it's the wrong way. So if it's not working, then the first thing you want to do is stop, look at your work, and say, okay, this isn't working. My stitches are long. Okay, I got to slow down. One or the other, either the foot pedal or um, move my fabric faster.
Got it.
But what you want is control. So you want to be right on top. Now look at my speed to get good control, and I'm right on top of
You're
those
dead on
pebbles.
those. Yep.
I'm not going all that fast,
No.
but again, my stitch length is figured out and everything. So it's just like driving a stick shift.
Got it. Now, can I ask a question? And this is a bit of a loaded question, but it's a
Uh
question
oh.
that I've seen. It's not a good or bad, but it is noticeable for me.
All right.
I find that people that do sit down quilting, when I'm on the long arm, I find that my designs are bigger. My feather fronds can get longer and larger, obviously, because I have more space. I have a little bit, I'm not saying more control, but what I have is more space. I tend to open up. But when I'm
Right.
on my sit down, I find for myself, and again, I tend to do long arming mostly,
Mm-hmm.
but when I go to the sit down, I find myself doing smaller work. Is
Mm-hmm.
that, and I know you're seasoned at sit down, is that normal?
Absolutely normal.
Okay.
And the reason for that is you on a long arm, because I long arm too, you can get there like this
Yep.
and you're there,
It's all in the
right?
swoop.
On a domestic, to maintain even with stitch regulation, you can swoop somewhat, but it's a slower process to get there.
Got it.
So it's a combination patience thing,
Yes.
but it's also it looks kind of cool small.
Yeah, I agree.
And for me, I think maybe because I started off on a domestic, um, um, my control is dead on the money.
Yes.
If I always have good feather days
Yes.
on
Absolutely.
my domestic. Not I have good and bad feather days on my long arm
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. All
because
right.
I don't have to move machine. I only have to move fabric.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. All right. Okay, so we've got start with Nate. Where would you have them go? Just kind of quickly, and then we'll be done. Where would you have them maneuver next for practice? You're going to have them start with their name. You're going to have them do some things like maybe some meander. What would you tell them? And would you? It's not like five. Again, it always goes back to me too. This is not a 5 minute gig.
No,
You're going to be practicing your name. You're going to be practicing meander. You're going to be practicing swirls. I found were really good to get them because swirls will really throw them off.
you have to maintain that shape all the way through, and then even spacing all the way back.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So swirls are great,
Absolutely. And I think I
and
always, yeah,
just don't get frustrated and think, in the first 5 minutes, oh, I don't like this,
right.
because it will be different from if you're a long armor. It will be a different.
And smaller, 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 smaller. I find that people that hop on these machines, they want to go big. I want to go big. I want to make a regular, if I were on a long arm, my swirl would be this big instead of
I can
this
get
big.
it that
You,
big,
because you're
but
seasoned,
but I
right? Yeah,
it'll take me a
yeah,
while
yeah.
to get there.
And they think they're making a mistake by going slow. It's not a mistake.
Not a
It's the
mistake.
way it's supposed to go.
Right,
It's
right,
a
right.
slower
And
process.
it's I think it's a misnomer to say again, you can't do big things on a small machine or small things on a big
Right,
machine. You can. And one of my quilts has this huge swirl,
right,
about like that tall, maybe.
right.
Um, and I chalked it first so I knew where I was going to go.
That's the key
And
too.
then it's in steps,
Yeah,
and then step, and
yeah.
then step.
I definitely find I mark more on the sit down.
I'm about the same.
Personally. I mean, I know everybody's different, but I find that I mark more because I don't do it all the time like you do. Yeah, so that helps me a lot. Okay. Well, my dear, I learned a lot. That was pretty amazing. And I'm no slouch at it, but I'm certainly no Sue Heinz at this. So that was pretty incredible. Thank you for sharing with all of us um, the beginning portion of how to start with a sit down machine and kind of which direction to go to. So, as you look at some more of our tutorials, you're really going to see her do some amazing, fancy stuff. And if you've been wanting to do sit down work, you're definitely going to want to check those out. And remember, if you are on a long arm, that doesn't matter. It's the same process. It's
Exactly.
just going to be on
Thank
a
you for
long arm.
mentioning that.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we will see you down the road.